And there is a big difference between, like you were talking about, like between products and people who are selling services. There's such a big difference between it with the public relations as well. For example, we had a product, a few months ago, and as soon as we got them some stories, their sales tripled, and they could see that immediately. Whereas the people who are experts, it's a slower thing because the business-to-business cycle is always slower and takes so much building trust. People aren't going to read one thing about you or hear from you one time and say, oh, I think I'm going to do business with you now when you're selling a service the way they will with a product.
Yes, and I think that's actually just a super big part, right, is that I tell that to my clients all the time. You can't send out one email or one press release and, boom, your program gets filled. It doesn't work like that, or your speaking engagements get booked, right? It is. Right. I'm glad you're saying that it's more.
It requires so much more trust building.
Mm-hmm. And so take me through what you're looking for. Maybe a new client shows up and they're service-based. Okay. They're a speaker and author, or maybe something like that. Where do you like to get started?
That's wonderful. A speaker and author is perfect because speakers typically have a nonfiction book. They usually write to inspire people, and right now in the business publications, leadership is such a huge topic. The editors love anything about leadership. So they would come, and the first thing we would do is really try to get their messaging in order, make sure that we're using the right words and figure out who their target market is, their dream media, put together a plan, and start drafting press releases, and then start pitching them. But the thing that like sometimes for them, if they have no past media, sometimes it takes starting a little smaller and building up and building up and building up. I have a client who a couple of year and a half ago was just doing podcasts and really wasn't getting television. And then now he's booking television all the time because he went from podcast to radio drive time. It just was a progression up and up and up. So the people with no past media, sometimes it can be a little slow. And a lot of the times, too, getting people in the bigger publications starts with the smaller publications, and then you progressively go up. And people aren't always really patient with that process because they want it now, and so they'll always have that specific publication, whether it's the New York Times or Fast Company or whatever. So I always have to show them an email that someone from the New York Times sent me a few years ago that says, I love this product, I'd like to write about it, but the first question my editor is going to ask me is, where else have they been? Because they haven't been vetted. So, so I always have to show them that email to kind of adjust expectations. But for speakers and authors, it's really great because it makes their booking agent's job a lot easier when you can say that they've been on television or in big-name magazines and things like that. It really gives them a competitive advantage over other speakers in their price point on their top. Right.
And I see that actually happening all the time for my clients as well. So it's the more time that we put in and invest in those small little opportunities sometimes. It might be, like you're saying, it could be press releases. It could be social media. It could be speaking engagements. There's so many ways to get yourself vetted.
The other thing people don't really understand, too, is that it all works together. So, for example, it's much better for me to talk about myself on LinkedIn or something if I have an interview link to share or a guest piece or something like that, to go into one of my LinkedIn groups and share that is a lot better than just like, hey, check out my website or something like that. It's a lot better for me to share my email marketing list than because you're providing value. So my email marketing and social media wouldn't work without the PR end of my business. And so people sometimes will just do social media or email marketing without doing the PR, or they'll do the PR and then it's like, okay, that was cool, and then they don't share it anywhere or take it anywhere from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to make sure you're doing all of it.
Yeah, several of my clients were sponsoring at that event last week in Las Vegas, and one of them is Paul Taubman. And Paul walked up to me, and we've been working for about 2.5 years getting him out and getting him seen and his business started. And he walked up to me and said, "Oh, my God, it finally happened. Someone recognized me." And I was like,
"Oh, that's
I told
amazing.
You, just put in the time. Put in the time."
That's amazing. That's amazing. He had to be
exactly
so
right.
excited.
He really was. So, we have to be ready to commit, and so great. So let's talk about press releases is one, social media is another way. What kinds of things do you do with your clients to get them out there and get them seen?
We usually do traditional media, and we're a lot bigger on pitches and press releases because I feel like a press release has an implied favor of, would you please write about me? Whereas with pitching, you're offering either an interview or a guest piece, or if you have a product, a sample of a product, or some, tickets to a show, whatever the case is, offering something rather than just writing a press release, I feel like is a lot more effective, and you're offering value instead of asking for value.
Yeah, when I was digging around on your website, I noticed that, and then I read it in your bio, but you do you write for other publications. Is that the type of thing you're talking about?
Yes, that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. Is, for example, I write for Entrepreneur about public relations topics, and I have the sales trainer I work with writes for Entrepreneur about, and many other magazines as well, about sales topics and different things like that. There's so many different publications out there, and some of them it can be really difficult to even get to write a guest piece for, but it's all just working your way up. Yeah.
How did you get started with Entrepreneur?
I pitched them, and they said yes, so I was happy about that. I'd actually for a long time I didn't do public relations on myself. I thought it's redundant, like PR on PR, until the sales trainer I work with pointed out to me. He said, "I would love to understand more about what you do. So many people don't understand it." And I said, "Well, that's very true, because whenever people come to me, they half the time don't even know why they're coming to me, except that they know they're supposed to do it from TV or something like that, because they don't really understand it." So he said that a lot of people really want to understand it. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that it's something people want to know about.
That's right. Talk about give yourself credibility too. Once you get started as a contributor for Entrepreneur, right? I mean, that's big time. So.
And that's something coaches and just other people can do for you, is give you that outside perspective.
And then the other thing I noticed on your website, I was looking through your blogs, and I love that you really, you a lot of your blog posts pull in important people, like Mark Cuban, I think was in the last one that you wrote about.
Yes.
And I think that's another big piece that people miss out on when they are looking for the PR. Find that common ground, the thing that people are looking for already. I saw Robert Kiyosaki on one of them, Entrepreneur on one of them. Amy Poehler was on one of them. So, how can you take those stories and turn it into something that's yours was about PR, right? So the one from with Mark Cuban.
I'm doing what I tell my clients to do, of constantly watching, when you're watching TV, to be watching with this mind of looking for something that ties into what you're doing, just constantly reading books, magazines, television. So maybe sometimes I excuse myself, like, oh, I'm working, it's okay, I have to watch Shark Tank or something like that. But just, and you never know where it's going to come from, because I think if you go through some of the different pieces and things like that. I wrote one article about how Dallas, the reboot of Dallas that was on TNT, taught us about rebranding. That obviously wasn't a show that directly tied in the way Shark Tank does, but I saw so many different lessons, and I thought it was a good way to demonstrate it to people in a way that they understood or could relate to or found more entertaining. And Mark Cuban thing was pretty big in the PR world when he said that he said something along the lines that a startup didn't need PR, they could do it themselves. And a lot of what he was talking about it being too expensive was based on what the PR people at his level are charging, which is so much more.
Correct.
And there's so many options out there. So, yes, I agree that a startup does not need to be paying $10,000 a month for PR. However, there are options out there that are far less. And the things he was saying is there's just certain things that you have no way of doing as someone new. That you haven't, you don't, the PR people have either learned from someone who made a lot of mistakes and had years to do it, or they made all of the mistakes and then got better and better and better and better. So why spend your time making all of those mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just the opportunity is truly there for the startups as well, right? To use PR to get bigger faster. And interesting.
And startups would be surprised too. Like my most challenging client to get covered is probably the people in the middle, because there's publications that really want to cover startups, and there's publications that want to cover the big companies. But if you're in the middle and you've been around for 5 to 10 years, sometimes that's the toughest place to be.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Makes sense, though. Wow. Cool.
Yeah, there's a big startup culture that people are interested in.
Yeah, so guys, you can, be sure you go check out her blog post at atlargepr.com. There's some really great stuff there. How else can people connect with you?
The best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn, because I do try to take those relationships into the real world and offer a free 30-minute consultation to my connections.
Good. Awesome.
So I'm on Twitter and all of that, but really the place that I'm active the most is LinkedIn.
Okay, excellent. Fantastic. So let's leave everybody with some great PR advice, parting words. What would you say?
I would say that to get out of your own head to be successful, whether you are too shy and you're too scared, like you don't feel like you are big enough to go do certain things, sometimes you'd be surprised at how receptive people really are when you present the message in the right way. And to just not be afraid and do it, because the worst that they can do is say no.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brittany. It's been fantastic having you here on the show, and I'll have to see if we can get connected when I come to Vegas next time.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. So, guys, this has been Brittany Walters-Bearden. Be sure you look her up on LinkedIn and check out her website and at largepr.com. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Growth Coaching Systems Network exists to serve you, the business owner, by assessing, coaching, and connecting you to the right person or people that can provide you the best next step in building and progressing your business, health, and relationships. GCS Network and our collaborative partners believe in delivering 10x results by breaking through the spin, churn, and burn cycle, giving you the right relationships, message, and visibility necessary to succeed. Please connect with Brian by phone or email at 713-345-0223 or Brian at gcsnetworkpartner.com.
Lauren Jono is an elite, international certified, high-performance coach, author, and speaker with over 15 years' experience helping clients transform so that they are living bolder, happier, and more successful lives. Through a combination of her world-class coaching program and exclusive assessments, her mission is to get to the crux of your issues quickly and accurately. and then guides you to achieve sustained and higher levels of clarity, joy, energy, connection, influence,